So what are cognitive distortions? And how can irrational thinking make us depressed? If you or somebody you know suffers from depression or low mood, keep watching because I'm going to explain how our patterns of thought or habits, style of thinking can affect depression and what to do about it. For the best tips, advice and tools on how to manage your mindset for a calmer, happier, more confident life, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified every time I post a new video, which will be every Friday. I'm Becca Teers, and in my work as an author, mindset management therapist and hypnotherapist, I've helped many people to heal depression and low mood. And I made this video to be able to share some ideas to help you too. And hang on right until the end, because at the end I'm going to share with you a special free gift, a special bonus, which will help you to feel better if you are feeling depressed and down or suffering from low mood. So hang on right until the end for that special bonus. So what are cognitive distortions or thought distortions? Well, they are patterns of thoughts that are irrational, filtered and overgeneralized. So in other words, they're distorted or false and often negative. And I'm going to give you some examples of distorted thoughts and the way that we think when we are thinking with this pattern of thinking in a moment. But first of all, I want to talk about something that you can do to really heal depression and anxiety. Now, CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, is an evidence-based, effective therapy, and it works on the premise that our thoughts affect our feelings and our emotions, which in turn influence our actions or behaviours. And obviously our actions and behaviours in life affect our outcome and results in our lives. So CBT is really effective for helping us to change the thoughts at the beginning of this process. And it's used widely now to help to heal and beat depression and anxiety. And I talk a little bit more about being able to change our thoughts at the beginning of this process in this video here. And the tool that I talk about using, that I explain in this video, is called the thought loop. And so watch this video here after this one and learn a technique that will help you to change your thoughts at the beginning of this process so that you can influence your emotions and behaviours and then your outcomes in life. Now, depression and low mood can be made much worse by, and sometimes even caused by, thoughts that focus on the negative aspects of ourselves and our lives. And when we've been thinking like this for a while, it can become a habit of thinking, making depression and low mood much, much worse. It's not always clear why we start thinking in this distorted, negative, filtered way, but on becoming aware of it for ourselves and becoming aware that by doing this and thinking in this pattern of thinking, we're adding to our low mood or depression. So many people, by becoming aware of their thoughts, have been able to change them and elevate and lift their low mood so that positive thinking becomes more of the habit. Now, awareness is the first step in being able to change this. So see if you recognise any of these distorted ways of thinking. And you know, we're all prone to thinking in this way. We all have a tendency to do this sometimes, but it's just more common and more prevalent in depressed people. So see if you recognise any of these. The first example of distorted thinking that I'm going to talk about here is all or nothing thinking. So for an example of this, it would be, say for example, if there's a student who normally always gets A's in his exams, and on one occasion he gets a B, he would then, if he was thinking in this way of all or nothing thinking, distorted thinking, he might think, now I'm a total failure because I got a B rather than an A. And that's all or nothing thinking. There's no in between, no balance. It's one way or the other. The next example of cognitive distortion and a distorted way of thinking is overgeneralization. So this is where if something has happened, you assume that this same thing will happen over and over again in your life and that it will never change. And so for an example of this, say for example if a guy asks a girl out for a date and she politely declines for whatever reason, maybe she's got a boyfriend already, maybe she's busy that evening, or it could be any reason. But the guy may, if he's thinking in this way, he may assume, oh, I'm never going to get a girl to go out with me. And then another type of distorted thinking can come in where it's called catastrophizing. So thinking of the worst case scenario. So I'm never going to get a girl to go out with me, and this means that I'm going to be lonely on my own for my whole life, and that is overgeneralizing and catastrophizing. Another example is what we call a mental filter. So this is where you focus on the negative aspect or a negative point of any situation, and so that you don't really notice any of the positives or any of the neutral things about that situation, and in your mind the whole situation becomes negative. And I talk about this a bit more in this video, which is all about perfectionism, because a trait of perfectionism is to only notice the things that are wrong rather than what's right. And interestingly, a symptom of perfectionism is depression too, so it makes sense. So I'm interested in you, these distorted ways of thinking, can be patterns of thinking that we all entertain at times. So do you recognise any of these distorted ways of thinking? Just drop a comment in the box below. It'd be interesting to hear from your point of view as well. Another way of thinking in this distorted way is called jumping to conclusions, and included in jumping to conclusions is something called mind reading. Now this is where you become convinced that somebody is reacting in a negative way to or about you without actually checking that that's accurate. And also this sort of jumping to conclusions includes something that we call the fortune teller thought error, where you become convinced that something's going to turn out really badly, and you also then just take it as the truth, that your prediction is accurate without really checking or thinking about the facts. So that's called the fortune teller error. And the last form of thought distortions that I'm going to talk about today is something called labelling or mislabelling. And this is where you focus on the person rather than the action. And say for example if somebody's let you down, you might call them a rude name, or if you've made a mistake, instead of saying, oh I made a mistake, you might say, oh, I'm a total loser. And this sort of language that we use in labelling or mislabelling can be really hurtful to yourself or to others, and it's definitely emotionally loaded. So how can we start to change our distorted thoughts to be able to lift our mood? I'm going to share with you a tool, a CBT tool called the triple column tool, which helps to balance distorted thoughts by challenging them, challenging the truth in them, and balancing them with a rational response. So it helps you to see the different side of it and to balance the negative with the positive so that it's more realistic, and this really helps. So I'm going to share this with you now. So the triple column technique, and I'm going to use the example of you being late to a meeting and the way that you start to think if you're running late for a meeting, and use this example to explain this technique to you. So the triple column technique can be used to restructure the way that you think about yourself when you've made a mistake in some way, or if you're judging yourself in some way. It can also be used on other types of distorted thoughts as well. And the aim is to substitute more objective, rational thoughts for the illogical, harsh self-criticisms that automatically flood your mind if you do make a mistake. So using the example of being late for a meeting, the first automatic thought or self-criticism might be, I never do anything right. And the cognitive distortion, if you look in the next column, is overgeneralization. Now a rational response that you could come up with to balance this thought, so a sort of self-defense almost, is nonsense, I do a lot of things right. And then the next automatic thought that you might think in this situation is, I'm always late. Now the cognitive distortion that's here is also overgeneralization. And then the rational response might be, I'm not always late. Think of all the times that I have been on time. The next automatic thought that we're using in this example is, everybody will judge me. Now this cognitive distortion type is mind reading, overgeneralization, all or nothing thinking, and also it involves fortune teller error. An irrational response to this might be, someone may be disappointed that I'm late, but it's not the end of the world, and maybe the meeting won't even start on time. And then the next automatic thought that might come into your mind is sort of a mislabeling thought, like, this shows what an idiot I am. And again, the cognitive distortion is labeling. And the rational response to this might be, come on now, I'm not an idiot, everybody's late sometimes, and this doesn't make me an idiot. So you can see that by using this triple column technique, you're identifying the distorted thought or self-criticism, and you're looking at identifying what type of distorted thought it is, just for becoming aware of the way that we're thinking, and then you're balancing it and challenging it with a rational thought. And so it's really, really effective. And to do it, I would write things down. So I'd just scribble on a piece of paper, the 3 columns, and write all the thoughts that you're thinking about this situation, about yourself. Identify what distorted way of thinking that is, and then come up with a rational response, maybe as if you're talking to your friend and they're sort of criticizing themselves. So this is a really effective technique, and do try it. So now you have an idea of some of the distorted ways that we think when we're depressed or down. And the triple column technique can be so effective in helping to change these thoughts by challenging them and coming up with rational responses. So do try this technique. And if you are suffering from low mood or depression, often confidence and self-esteem can be quite low. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, there's a special bonus that I've created for you, a free hypnosis MP3, which works powerfully on the subconscious mind to increase your confidence, your self-esteem and self-belief. So if you would like a copy of this powerful recording, please do click the link in the description below and you'll get your copy. I hope you liked this video, and if you found it helpful, please do hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel. When you subscribe to my channel, it supports the channel, which helps these videos to get seen by more people and help more people. And please do share this video with anyone that you think could benefit. And I just want to say thanks so much for watching and spending your time with me. And before I see you again in the next video, please take care of yourself and see you soon.